Check them. We good. Bam. Micah check one. What's up, y'all? I'm TJ, and I'm a strength and conditioning coach and a sports nutrition coach. I'm here to share some knowledge with y'all on all things strength training related and my approach to it. I hope that the information that I share with you provides some good tips and tricks and things that you can incorporate into your routine in order to live as healthy a life as you want to live and to become as strong as you want to become. So, let's get started. The first thing that I'm going to talk about to help you in your never-ending quest for strength and improved health is the most absolute, surefire way for you to improve. And that's something known as the theory of constraints. It's a business concept. If you're familiar with weak point training, it's very similar to that. But the basic premise of the theory of constraints says that every process has a limiting factor, which is going to be the constraint, or also known as the bottleneck. And focusing your efforts on improving that bottleneck is going to be the fastest and most effective way to improve profitability. Or in this case, it's going to be your strength. Let's break it down in terms of a business example, and then after that, I'll explain how it relates to your body and what some of those constraints can be. Say you have a manufacturing business and you produce chopsticks. You produce chopsticks, and your production capacity for the business is 1,000 chopsticks a day. With your current systems and equipment that you have, you can only produce 1,000 chopsticks a day. Meanwhile, your rockstar sales team has been trying to scale the business up and has been telling the entire world about your organic, non-GMO, paleo, and keto-friendly chopsticks that are the most amazing thing for putting up your hair, or eating with, or doing whatever else you want to do with a chopstick, maybe. Point is, your business has the potential to scale up to, say, 2,000 chopsticks a day. However, because of your production constraint, you can only produce 1,000 chopsticks a day. The constraint would be whatever your weak point is, and the potential profitability that you have from scaling your chopstick business to 2,000 units a day would be your potential improvements that you have sitting on the table, but you cannot scale any higher than your 1,000 chopsticks a day. Now that you have a general understanding of the theory of constraints, let's shift gears and talk about how those bottlenecks can translate over to weak points in training. There's a couple of different things that I would consider to be weak points, and although they serve similar functions, which is to improve weak points, they are a little bit different and have different purposes. They are important and related, so I do want to discuss them briefly before I get into the main subject of what specific weak points I'm talking about. The first type of weak point that I want to talk about is going to be exactly like it sounds, a technical weak point or a technique weak point, where your sole focus is on improving your technique for that specific movement. That could be something like improving your clean and jerk to have a better bar travel so you can get under the bar more effectively and have less wasted energy. If you play any type of throwing sport, that could be improving your throwing mechanics. And then on the other end of the technical technique weak points you have would be something like your sticking points, which would also be a strength issue as well. So let's say you're a power lifter and your bench press is doo-doo at lockout. It's most likely going to be a tricep issue. So you would want to work on strengthening your triceps, but then also improving your technique through that lift and that range of motion as well. So there's things you could use like, board benching, use bands, chains, things like that in order to improve not just your strength and your triceps, but to improve through that range of motion as well, to improve your technique for the lift. All right, so that was a very brief discussion on some of the other types of weak points that are out there. So now let's get into the good stuff. Not that those are not good, but this is the main stuff that I wanted to talk about. So this is the real good stuff. You have your technical weak points, which I just touched on, And then the other type of weak point that I want to address are known as structural weak points. So your structural weak points are going to be your actual weak links and constraints within your current movement capabilities and performance. So whatever those limiting factors are right now and how your body moves is going to also determine the amount of force potential that you can generate, which translates to your strength and power. To provide a little context onto how this is all going to tie together, the first thing that we got to discuss is a little bit of anatomy, and that's going to be the sliding filament theory of muscular contraction, which is an explanation on how the mechanisms of muscular contraction works and how the muscle fibers interact with one another in order to make that happen. So your muscles have three different states that they can be in: either a stretched or lengthened state, a contracted or shortened state, and your resting length. Now, according to the sliding filament theory, you have two different muscle fiber types, actin and myosin. And when a muscle contracts, these two muscle fibers will interact with one another, and they're going to attach via cross bridges. The cross bridges are just attachment sites for the muscles to interact with one another. So let's say you have your actin, and then you have your myosin, which when the muscle contracts, these fibers are going to interact with one another and attach via those cross bridges. And the number of cross bridges that are available is going to determine the amount of force potential that you can generate. Again, that force potential is going to translate over to your strength. Now, I'm going to give you a really rough example of what those different muscles I'm going to give you a very rough example of what those muscle states and lengths look like and their ability to generate force potential based on the number of cross bridges. Here, so it'll be easier to see. So when a muscle's in a stretched state, you have a lower force potential because there's a reduced number of cross bridges available. So if you go here, if you have your fingertips, let's say your fingertips are the cross bridges and your muscle fibers attachment sites. So if you grab just your fingertips, you pull, we'll say that's a muscle in a lengthened state, you only have this amount available to you for cross bridges, so you can only generate so much force potential. Conversely, in a contracted or shortened state, you're going to have an overlap from those muscle fibers. So you're going to have, a reduced number of cross bridges. So let's see, if you go, say, fingers here, and you do the same thing, you're just going to pull as hard as you can, reduce number of cross bridges, you're not going to be able to generate as much force. Now, if the muscle's at your optimal resting length, where you're able to maximize the number of cross bridges available, you are going to be able to generate the greatest amount of force potential, which translates to power and strength. So if you have optimized maximal cross bridges here, grab and you pull as hard as you can, doesn't go anywhere. So you have thus maximized your number of cross bridges to generate the greatest force potential. So when your structure is off and your muscles aren't at their resting length, you're not going to maximize the number of cross bridges available, and you're going to reduce the force potential that you have. Pardon my loud chair. So, what does that mean? It means you got to stay tuned for part 2. Yes, part 2. This video's gone pretty long, and there's still more things that I want to talk about. So this is a good segue. In the next video, I'm going to talk about how the sliding filament theory, those different muscle lengths, tie into your structural weak points, what those structural weak points are, and how you can improve those limiting factors so you can improve your strength gain. So that video will be somewhere, most likely in the description. Stay tuned for it. If you have any questions, comments, leave them down below and I'll get to them. So thanks for checking it out, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks.